So this morning I'm with Pauline Heron. So thanks for joining us. Pauline is a business psychologist and also a developer. Um, so Luke Hamill has told me a lot about Pauline. Sorry, Luke Hamill is my co-host of the Central London Evening Meet. Luke's based in Northamptonshire, and Luke said I must speak to Pauline. So really delighted that you've joined me this morning. Pauline, rather than me rattle on and just to give the listeners a flavour of who you are, what you do, tell me a bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me on to speak to you this morning, Brendan. It's a great pleasure, and I'm delighted that Luke recommended me because he's an amazing guy. So I bought my very first property when I was 17. One of my biggest regrets is that I didn't keep it because that was in London. So I dread to think how much that would be worth now in comparison to when I bought it at 17. And I rented rooms out in that property, and so it completely covered my costs while I was there. But it wasn't as a property strategy at the time. It was more out of necessity than anything. I very soon after that left London and I went and joined the military for 25 years. While I was in the military, I ran a number of businesses alongside my military career, and one of them was starting to invest more seriously in property. And I was in the fortunate position that I actually had spare cash, and I didn't want to leave it in the bank because, we all know, the banks don't give us decent interest rates. So I started buying property, but back in the 90s, in the early 90s, when I started doing that, I didn't have the education that I have now. And I was always brought up to believe that you don't buy anything unless you've got the money for it. So I saved up the money. As soon as I had the money, I bought a house, then I bought another house, then I bought another house. And that's how I started building my portfolio. But because I was in the military and it was just as a matter of sort of more of a long-term investment, I wanted a very easy strategy, and I was buying buy-to-lets, which were working great for me. Then in the mid-90s, my portfolio had grown quite significantly, and my husband was leaving the military, and we decided he wasn't going to be a kept man, so he could start managing all the properties. So he started managing all of our properties, and then we started managing other people's properties. Well, he did. I didn't, because I was still working. And we set up a letting agency, which we now franchise out our lettings business as well, and we're always looking for new business partners and joint ventures on that. And then later on, when I left the military in 2008, I'd done a lot of training and coaching, and I set up my business psychology business, where I was helping a number of different companies, from small pre-startup businesses to senior members and directors of large international companies. And that's where I focused most of my energy. And my property portfolio was gradually building and in the background. But I never really thought of it as a business as such. It was just something that was on the side. And it was only 2 years ago, when my son left university and decided that he didn't want to work for anybody else and wasn't sure what he wanted to do, that he asked me to set up a business with him. And that's when we set up Heron House, which is our investment arm of our business. And we set up Heron House and we started buying more properties. Now, I was more interested in different strategies when he came on board, whereas we'd done single lets, we'd done some title splits, and we had done some flips when I was buying with my husband. But when my son came on board, he was wanting to do some other things. So we started doing HMOs and service departments. And that's where we were focusing most of our energy. And we were also looking at putting together investors that we were meeting with developers who were doing developments. And so we were brokering some of those. And that's how our business was growing. But my son actually went back to university for a year because he got headhunted to go back and do his PhD. So we no sooner got started than he disappeared off. So I started to have to focus more on the property side and moved away from my normal training side. He then came away from university because the business was growing and accelerating quite quickly. And so he took a year out from university. And that's when we set up Development Discovery. And we set up Development Discovery. It was quite an unusual thing because I'm always a great believer that you've got to keep educating yourself. As a psychologist, I know that by keeping your brain active and getting more information in, that's how you continue to grow as an individual and you continue to grow in business. So I've always invested in training on myself and on mentors, etc. And on one of those programs, we met two wonderful guys. who had a business investment that they wanted us to go into in a development that they were doing. And at that time, I was sort of focusing heavily on service departments. And I was getting fed up with not being able to find blocks of service departments together, because that's the best way to do it. So I thought, okay, let's look at getting on the development side. So that's when we met Gary and Alan, and we went up to have a look at development that they were doing. Now, I took action and went up there, but I didn't take it quite quick enough, because that was a brilliant, brilliant project, but another investor had beaten me to it. So I missed out on that. But because I'm always looking for opportunities, I then discovered that these guys had so much knowledge and so much experience, over 50 years in construction and development, and I was really keen to get involved in the development side of things, that we then decided, and they were really keen to start training and teaching people how to do it, because they're doing it on a daily basis. And they're the best people to learn from. And I had all the experience in doing training and putting programs together, and all the business experience and communications and people experience that were relevant for training programs. So that's how Development Discovery was born. And so then we set that up earlier on this year, and now we're working with a number of mentees that are doing fantastic things, and have a range of different training programs that go on that help people at various stages, whether they're brand new to property, whether they're sort of a little bit into it, or whether they're quite experienced developers. We work with a whole range of people on that. And my training now has moved into more into property, either through the Development Discovery or on my one-to-one training and coaching and mentoring with people in other areas of property, or in the letting business training.
So, Paul, focusing on the development side in Scotland, I think it's in Edinburgh. What type of developments are being constructed right now? What opportunities are you looking for as well in that sector?
Okay, so up in Edinburgh at the moment, there are a number of developments going on. There's a commercial conversion with an office block into, it's been converted into one office and 11 flats. There's another one where there's a pub that's just been bought, which is going to be that's going to be flattened, and there's going to be, I think, 15 units built on that one. And there's a targeted commercial where there's some land been purchased, and it's going to be developed for a co-op and a Lloyd's pharmacy. And there's a whole range, there's about over 150 units at the moment up in that region that are being developed. And we're currently also looking and we've just made an offer on a development in Rotherham area, and that's going to be for, I'm not very good on numbers here. I need the guys for the numbers. I think that's for something like 30 units, 30 flats on that one. And we're currently negotiating on another one in Lincolnshire for an eco development of 89. And there's a couple that we're looking at in London. So, you know, the move now is south. So we're looking at stuff south of the border, even though there are a number of things going on in Scotland as well. But really, with the group of people that we're working with now, who are located all over the country, we're looking for opportunities anywhere. So we're looking for opportunities anywhere, and we're looking for people that are interested in doing investments anywhere as well. So we've got some wonderful joint venture partners that are coming on with us at the moment for the Rotherham one, and we've got some others that are considering the eco development. So we're looking for investors if they want to get involved in projects that they're interested in specifically that we can help them with, or if they want to invest in the projects that we're currently running.
Pauline, in terms of the team, so the team is yourself, Aidan, your son, and the guys in Scotland as well. So how did you create that joint venture partnership? I don't know if you use the word joint venture as such, but how have you created the team? Because obviously you can go further by creating teams, but what was your success in managing to get the guys from Scotland, yourself and Aidan, to work together to create this development, both in Scotland, you say Rotherham, and also in London, I believe you said as well. So how did that come about? Was it through a networking organization, a networking meet? Did you connect online? How did it come about?
Well, we were both involved. The guys in Scotland were both involved in training, and that's how we met them. So we were in a training group, and they were in training, and we met them through the networking that we were doing, and where we were both all of us were investing in our own education, and that's how we came together. So again, it's about being out in networks, and I've met some wonderful people this last week. I've been down in London for a fact about 2 weeks now, and I've been to networking events basically every day, I think. And in fact, when I saw you the other day, I was with you guys in the morning for breakfast, which was a wonderful start to the day. And then I was at another event in the evening where I was speaking down at one of the PPNs down south of London. So it's wonderful to get out into these networks. It's so important because when you're in the networks, you're actually learning so much information and you're meeting so many different people, and you never know where that will lead to. And so things like the networks that you run are fantastic because it gives everybody the opportunity to engage with one another. And that's how we met the guys. And then once we'd met them, I think the important thing is when you're working with people and you're looking for a long-term partnership, like we are, is to ensure that your values are aligned. And this is certainly something that I work with all the clients that I work with. It's important for people to understand what their values are. And then once you've identified that you've got an alignment of your values, when you're working within a team, you need to be looking at everybody working to their strengths. So, finding out what the strengths are within that team and making sure that, the people that are creative are given the opportunities to be creative, the people that are good in front of people and good with engaging, that they work in that environment, the people that are good with the details and the follow-up, that they're working in that environment. And we've got a great mix in our team where we've got people that can do that and everybody focuses on the areas that they're good at.
Sure. So follow-up is key. And what would you suggest to listeners here? So you've done plenty of networking, both I'm sure at PPNs as a speaker and also as an attendee. So what would your key shares to the listeners be when their networking meets? What would you suggest they do, particularly in the follow-up stages?
On the follow-up stages of network meets, I think it's very important that you actually, if you are connecting with people and you find that there's some sort of synergy there, that you do follow up. But also, I think one of the things at networking meets is a lot of people go there in what's in it for me, what can I get out of it? But actually, if you focus a little bit more on what can I give, then quite often you get more out of it. So it's with me, I always find it's important to find out what can I give somebody, what is there that I can offer them. And even if it's just a half an hour phone call, if somebody, quite often people will talk to me and they've got an issue around a certain thing, and it might only take 15 minutes or half an hour call, and if I've got that opportunity to do that, then I'll say, give me a call and we'll see what we can do. But it is important that you follow up, and I always try to make some note of either the event that I've been at or something specific about that person, so that when you connect with them, that they know that you actually really remember who they are, because otherwise just a blanket email out to everybody that you've met because you collected 50 cards is not very good. So try and remember something about that person if you feel there was a synergy or a connection, and don't leave it too long, so follow up quite quickly.
Sure. Do you use a CRM system as well?
Yeah, we have a CRM system. We use Infusionsoft, but there are lots of other good CRM systems that you can use that actually don't cost a lot of money, and a lot of them are free. So things like Zoho is a free CRM that you can use, and Less Annoying, I find, a very, very good CRM system. And these are things that I recommend to people who are starting up in business, and to actually to keep all their data together in this sort of system, because you can keep records then of calls of you've done and actions that you've taken, and it's a lot easier than having a whole bundle of cards lying around.
I've heard of Less Annoying. The other one you mentioned was, how do you spell the other one?
Zoho, Zoho.
Okay, that's interesting. Because it's definitely a presentation which I will have at some point about effective CRM systems as such.
And there's actually a new one that I'm just looking at as well, which looks really good, called Hotspot.
Okay.
HubSpot, HubSpot.
Because one of the key questions that I had was about the software you use. So you do use CRM system. So that sounds like it's integral to your success in your business.
Yeah.
Um,
And we use a different CRM system in our letting agency, a completely different one. And actually in the letting agency now, we're also changing to another CRM system that a lot of property people are using, which works very well, called Arthur. And that's something for landlords that works really, really well, is the Arthur system.
sure, no, I know Arthur very well because they present at my meets, and I spoke
They're
to yeah, and I spoke to David, the co-founder, a couple of days ago. So it's interesting their name keeps popping up. What other things would you suggest to investors? What what other lessons have you learned going forward? An effective CRM system's key, it sounds like. But is there anything else you would do differently if you were starting off, or you have done, which you think is integral to success?
Well, I think one of the other things that actually, if while we're just talking on different software things, the other systems that I find that you work really well for a general chat system for people when there's lots of people, and we use this a lot with our mentors, especially now that they're evaluating like 7 or 8 different deals at the moment. We use a system called Slack, and that's really good because you can actually categorize folders in there. So for example, when we're looking at the Rotherham one or we're looking at the London deal, we just have a folder for each of those, and it's just like a chat room, and then anything that's found or new information that's come in or actions that people have taken on it, it can go onto the Slack folder and we can just follow the thread on that. So that works very well. And as a sort of project management tool, and that's free, and a project management tool as well that's free, that's very, very good, is Asana. We find that very useful for various projects that we're working with, and certainly a lot of the clients I work with use Asana a lot.
Okay, so some interesting names which I definitely haven't come across. Pauline, I was going to say I'm definitely keen to ask a couple more questions, but this interview is quite a short interview as such. When are people going to be able to have an opportunity to meet you in person to gain a better understanding of you? I know you said you spoke at PPN a few days ago. Do you have any speaking engagements lined up, or any webinars, or how else can people connect with you is a key question. So let's say someone's thought sounds fairly interesting. I want to connect with Pauline a little bit more. Is there a website for people to go through?
Yeah, they can go through onto our Development Discovery website, which is www.developmentdiscovery.co.uk. And if they want to contact direct via email, they can contact us at office@developmentdiscovery.co.uk. And I have no more speaking engagements coming up at the moment, because we're quite busy getting ready for our last 2 training events this year. So we've got 2 training events coming up where we're looking at getting people, whether they're brand new to property or whether they're quite experienced in property, finding excellent development deals, development opportunities. And these are things that they could either be looking at for themselves, or that they could be looking at to package and sell on for an awful lot more than you can for a normal residential sourcing fee.
Sure.
So we've got 2 of those training days coming up, and we're also looking at some very exciting things around targeted commercial sourcing. And so they're coming up. One's in Edinburgh on the 6th of October, and the other's in London on the 15th of October. So I'm quite busy with those at the minute. So no more speaking gigs, but if anybody's actually interested in those, I'd love to hear from you. And we are going to be putting a webinar on probably next week about those. So if you'd like to find out more about those, then contact me via the email that I've just given, and we'd be delighted to speak to you.
Pauline, I just want to emphasize the website once again. Can you just remind the listeners, it's Discovery?
Developmentdiscovery.co.uk.
So developmentdiscovery.co.uk. So I want to say huge, I could easily keep you online, but as I say, in terms of going forward, the best thing to do for the moment is connect with Pauline, have a look at those workshops. So if you're based in the southeast, the London one, did you say they're going to be focused on slightly different subjects? Have I got that correct, Pauline?
Yeah, well, we're looking at how you source particular commercial and development deals, and we go through every detail about how to do your due diligence on that and how to find them. But the really interesting thing that we're looking at, that even a number of developers that we've spoken to don't know anything about, which I think is really exciting and really good, is targeted commercial. So we're looking at how to find and source and how to know what sort of things targeted commercial is. And that means looking for sites for people like McDonald's or Aldi or Tesco's. So how do you know what they want? How do you know where to look for them? And how do you know how to set that deal up? And that is something that is really, really exciting.
Sure. So I will include in the description of the video and the audio the details about how to book for those particular workshops or trainings coming up both in Scotland and in London. So just to focus on the London date, because most of my listeners are London based, Pauline, the date is the
date is the 15th of October, and it's in Wembley, and places are strictly limited on this because we like to keep our workshops really small so that you actually get real detail and real content so that you can go away and start working straight away on it. And also, like we said earlier on, you never know who's in the room. So we also are looking to get to know the people in our workshops better with a view to potentially maybe doing some joint ventures with them in the future. So that's why we like to keep it small. And also there's always at least 3 of us that get there, so you've got a whole breadth, because I cover things like communications, team building, all that sort of business strategy. Aidan does strategies and social media, and Alan will be covering all the development elements of it. So there'll always be at least 3 of us there that you can pick our brains on any element of business at all, and numbers are really, really limited, and it's getting really close now.
Sure. So brilliant. As soon as you let me know when the webinar is, then that way I can share the details about the webinar as well. So Pauline, I could keep you on the line for a lot longer, but I just want to say huge thanks to you, and I love the garden behind it. To be fair, I've been mesmerized by that amazing garden, wherever it is. So I just want to say huge thanks for your time this morning. I'm sure I'm going to see you fairly soon as well.
All right, thank you very much, Brendan, and thank you very much to all your listeners.
I was going to say the same. Thank you, Pauline.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.